Alright, 1.5, problem 19, we didn't get to it in class, but they give us some function of x, negative x minus 2 squared, defined on x is less than or equal to 2. We need to find the inverse, so we're going to set this equal to y, or change it into terms of x and y. Okay, now we need to solve for x, so I'm just switching these sides to get rid of some bad signs. Boom, so this came over here, that went over there. Square root of both sides, x minus 2, square root of negative y. Okay, add 2 to both sides, x equals square root of negative y plus 2. This has to be negative. Okay, and you know this has to be negative because if you look at our domain, it is restricted to 2 and less. Okay, so this right here, as you will see when we define this guy in just a second, when we put this in, we have to get a positive out of this radical. In order for x to be equal to something less than or equal to 2, this negative will make that happen, because this is going to be positive, so we need this negative to make this value negative here. And yeah, so what we have here is we are going to say this is our new function. We're going to call this g of x. So we think this right here is our inverse function. Okay, we know this domain, because of this right here, x has to be restricted to all values less than or equal to 0, because these negatives will put in x with negative values mixed with this negative, gives us a positive under here. Okay, with that positive, because we added this negative, that positive will become negative, and that'll keep us true to our domain up here, because we remember g of x and f of x, the domain, the range, the range. If x comes in here, you get out y, and y goes into f, and you get out z. So we have to keep this, make sure we're good to go putting into here. Okay, that's why we restrict this, is for this x to be accepted, and we're going to get out a y, and whenever we get out a y, it has to fall into the domain of f for it to go in, like this. Okay, so we plug into g, we get out something, and we plug that straight into f, and that's what we'll be doing right here. So to check to make sure this is the inverse, we have f composed of g. Because this is a function of g, our domain right here is going to be x is less than or equal to 0. And so what we do is we take f, which is negative, and then the x minus 2 squared. Okay, and in here we just put in g, which is negative, and then I'm going to write this as negative x to the 1/2 plus 2. Okay, sorry, that's small, but whatever. And yeah, so this 2, this minus 2 right here, or I mean this plus 2 right here, and this negative 2, they cancel. Alright, and then also these two negatives right here cancel as well. Okay, these two right inside here. So what we have is negative, and that is going to give us negative x to the 1/2 squared. Okay, 2's canceled, these negatives canceled. Here's our 1/2, here's our 2, and of course our negative out in front. Now, as we discuss in class later, anytime you take the square root of something and then square it again, that is the equivalent of the absolute value. So negative absolute value of x is what we get there. And then we know, because we're restricted to negative numbers, whenever you put in a negative here, we're going to make it positive, and this negative makes it negative again, and of course that equals x. So f of g does equal x. Okay, so now we just need to check g of f of x, and that is going to be, because it's a function of f, we're on f's domain, so x is less than or equal to 0, 2. I don't know how to erase, so I'm just going to write over. Yes, we take g, which is, I'm going to write this in terms of a negative, like that, and that's how I'm going to write the square root, and then plus 2. So we just plug in f here, which is a negative x minus 2 squared. Okay. These two guys cancel out, and I would rewrite that as, let's see, negative, and then it would be x minus 2 squared to the 1/2 plus 2. These cancel each other out, which gives us a negative, like I said last time, absolute value, x minus 2 plus 2. Okay. And then let's see what you can call it. Yeah. So because x is defined as less than or equal to 2, these will always give us a negative number, okay? Because the highest number we can put in here is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Then if you put in 1, it's 1 minus 2, and that's negative 1. So they all fall negative, and we make them positive, and this negative makes it positive. So we can rewrite this right here as x minus 2 plus 2. These cancel out, and that gives us x. So f composed of g, g composed of f, both equal x. Because they both equal x, we know that g of x is equal to the inverse of f. Okay, so f inverse of x is equal to g of x, and that of course is negative square root of negative x plus 2, defined on x is less than or equal to 0. But yeah, so this is the first video. Hopefully it's clear enough for you. The biggest things are understanding that we had to add this negative to keep us in the domain here, because this negative, because we can't have an x outside of the domain, and without that we would have gotten x values that did not correspond to this, and so that's why we had to add that one. And then of course the absolute value stuff. Square root to square gives us absolute value. Any questions on this, just shoot me a text or email me and whatnot. Good game.